Hello everyone, welcome back to the Final Fantasy XIV recap. This one was quite a bit longer to get through, so apologies for the delay. As always, I just want to say a quick thank you to you guys who all stop by my streams and say hello. It really is just so sweet of you guys. And without further delay, let's go over what's been going on for Coffee Mancer Bean. We head to Gridania to seek the aid of our Moogle friend Kupla Kop in bridging communication to the Churning Mist Moogles. Kane Senna also joins us as we arrive back at the peaks of Somal. Kupla Kop assists us in getting his distant relatives out of hiding, and they agree to help us so long as we prove ourselves to them. So we do a bunch of chores for the little palm-bearing menaces, and they reward us with a horn to call Hraesvelgr down for a chat. The Great Worm heeds the call of the tiny horn, and we attempt to convince him that he should help us stop his brother Nidhogg. Iceheart tries to appeal to the dragon, stating she is Shiva reborn. Hraesvelgr scoffs at her, stating that the deity that she shares her soul with is no more than a being of her own creation. This completely rocks Iceheart's world, as everything she thought she knew comes into question. Hraesvelgr tells us that our journey is pointless, that Nidhogg doesn't care to destroy Ishgard, but that everything he's done is to punish the Ishgardians instead. His vengeance for them killing and devouring their sister Ratatoskir. He used the heretics as his own forces, as once they imbibed the dragon's blood, they became dragons themselves, becoming incapable of resisting Nidhogg's roar. Alphinaud mentions how horrifying that is, to think of all the Dravanians we've killed. Estinian doesn't fully buy Hraesvelgr's story, however, since he finds it to conveniently absolve the Dravanians of all wrongdoing. The Great Worm cares little what Estinian believes. He states that the betrayal is still fresh in the minds of both himself and Nidhogg, and that is their only truth. Hraesvelgr leaves us. Iceheart is still trying to come to terms with all that was said, and Estinian tells us that we are left with only one option. We must leave Somal for the Eyrie and face Nidhogg himself. Estinian explains that our killing of Tiamat made Nidhogg take defensive action, meaning we've delayed the Ishgardian attack, but now we can't easily access the Eyrie itself, as it now has a significant barrier protecting it. We go to see Cid at the Skysteel Manufactory, where Biggs and Wedge excitedly show us their new aircraft, the Mana Cutter. While it is operational, they still have some fine-tuning to do, but they'll have it ready for us as soon as they are able. Tataru finds us and tells us there's been an update in Ul'dah regarding the Sultana and her whereabouts, so while Cid and the boys ready the Mana Cutter for action, we head out to meet with Raban. Yugiri, Papashan, Raban, and his son Pippin have located the Sultana's previous handmaid, and are heading to question her, and we've been invited to join them. After locating her, she attempts to plead ignorance and claims she's not the woman we're looking for. Before Raban can press her for answers, we are interrupted by Dulala and Lolorito's arrival. Lolorito explains the Sultana is alive and well, and that he had used Teleji Adeleji's plot against the man to stop Nanamo's assassination and be rid of Teleji altogether. Raban and Lolorito agree to a truce as Lolorito hands him the remedy for the Sultana, and they essentially pardon each other's crimes. Raban will not answer for executing Teleji, and Lolorito will not be tried for treason, as he saved the Sultana's life. Raban then heads to the Sultana's chambers and wakes her from her induced slumber. And with that, stability has been restored to Ul'dah, which is good. As Lolorito mentions, the Garleans have been hard at work on a massive warship that is on the same scale as the Agrius that was pulled into the lake by Midgardsormr. Upon leaving the Chamber of Rule, Alphinaud tells us that he's decided to disband the Crystal Braves. He admits to his hubris in founding the company, and he feels at fault for being so naive to allow the corruption to seep in. Though, when he arrives at the Waking Sands to relieve the remaining loyal Braves, they simply tell him their loyalty lies with him, and they're joining the Scions to continue to help defend all of Eorzea. We return to Ishgard and inform Emmerich of our plan to fight Nidhogg, and while he insists on accompanying us, both Estinian and Lucia remind him he is needed within the city. So we leave with Estinian and tear into Nidhogg's lair with the Mana Cutters. We confront the Great Worm and lay him low, Estinian prying the only eye he has from his skull. We get a vision showing Thornton's son and his men post-battle, and they had taken both eyes from Nidhogg. There's little time to relish in our victory, though, as Estinian mentions there are holes in the story we now know. If Nidhogg had lost both his eyes in the battle a century past, there's only one place he could have gotten the eye we just took. We return to Hraesvelgr. give him back his eye, and find Iceheart had remained there, while she thought on all she'd learned. We're given another vision through the echo of Nidhogg demanding an eye from Hraesvelgr to avenge their sister, and Hraesvelgr concedes. Iceheart scolds the dragon, accusing him of knowingly participating in the suffering the war has caused. He responds stating that she's a fool for thinking he would have any remorse for doing so. Estinian mentions that telling the people of Ishgard their founding tale is all a lie will cause quite a bit of chaos, as it means the high houses have no real authority, since everyone is descended from Thordan and his knights, not just the four houses. But the Dragonsong War is finally at an end with Nidhogg's demise. He receives word from Emmerich that there's a battle in the city, and that the heretics have invaded. Iceheart states she gave no order, and accompanies us to make her people come to their senses. We arrive in the midst of battle and join Haurchefant, who is perplexed to see us in the company of a wanted criminal, but asks no questions. Iceheart commands her people to stand down and leave the city, that Nidhogg is dead and Ishgard will finally know peace. As they lower their arms, the Temple Knights mean to pursue, but are quickly chastised by Haurchefant, who tells them they should see to the wounded first, and it would be folly not to follow the example of choosing peace. Back in the Fortom Manor, we speak with Emmerich, Edmund, and the rest of our company about the trouble Ishgard would face once everyone knows the truth. Emmerich makes to go to the Archbishop and tells him that the people must know for Ishgard to be able to move forward. And he does go, despite the protesting of Alphino and Lucia. Lucia informs us that should Emmerich be imprisoned for heresy, she intends to retrieve him herself. We all agree, and we make for the Broom to find allies that should help with storming the vault. It's in the Broom we meet Hilda, the leader of the revolutionaries. While having a discreet meeting with her, Cerbert of the Heavens Ward interrupts and we are forced to confront him. Lucia arrives and informs us of Emmerich's imprisonment. Hilda agrees to join us, and so the rescue operation ensues. While Lucia and the revolutionaries go to the prison where Emmerich is kept, Haurchefant, Alphino, and ourselves head to the vault to keep the Heavens Ward distracted. As we take on the Knights of the Heavens Ward, they exhibit odd powers not natural to the world. Once we've reached the top of the vault, Emmerich arrives with Lucia and tries to plead with his father, the Archbishop. But the man will hear none of it as he continues toward his airship. We, along with Haurchefant, attempt to stop him, but are stopped as Zephyrin launches an ethereal bolt straight for us. Haurchefant covers us and raises his shield, only for the shield to give under the force of the magic, piercing through both his shield and our dear friend. We rush to his side as the Archbishop gets away. Alphino tries all he can to heal Haurchefant, but states that the wound is far too deep to be mended. Haurchefant tells us not to look so somber, that a smile best befits a hero before he tragically passes away. We return to the Fortom Manor, and Lord Edmund is distraught at the loss of his son, even as he tries to rationalize it away and take solace that he died a hero. Our plans to follow the Archbishop in place, we leave for the Sea of Clouds. Here we find Ivanu under attack by Garleans, who seem to also be pursuing the Archbishop. We rescue the Vanu, and he brings us to his chief, who tells us of the key to the Aziz Law and how Bismarck ate it. So we go to deal with the giant sky whale by dragging a floating island through the sky as bait. We retrieve the key, only to have it stolen by the Archbishop and his Asian companion. When we return to the Vanu village, we find it under a Garlean attack, being led by the Emperor himself. He means to execute the Vanu, regardless of the enthrallment to the Primal. They leave with nothing but threats, and we get a glimpse of the massive airship Lolorito had warned us about. Cid takes us towards Azizla, but we find that without the key, we are unable to breach the barrier. And so we return to Ishgard, where Cid tells us if we had one of our Archon friends, they could have helped us to build an etheric ram to break through the Alagon barrier. That's when we hear the news that Tataru found a lead on one such friend of ours' location. Tataru excitedly tells us that she had finally heard from Pippin regarding the search in the rubble of the collapsed tunnel. So we head back to Ul'dah once again, and he gives us Y'shtola's wand, explaining they found that, but not the bodies of our companions. Urianger checks the ethereal residue on her wand, and he finds trace of a forbidden teleportation magic. The Elizan man explains the reason it's forbidden is due to the person's likelihood of being lost to the ethereal sea. With hopeful hearts, we head to the collapsed Sildan tunnel we escaped from, and Urianger scans for any trace of Y'shtola's ether. He tells us the trail leads to Gridania, which is fortunate indeed. As it turns out, we need to ask Kane Senna's assistance in retrieving our friend from the ethereal sea. Kane Senna explains that the elementals would need more than just our desire to find her, and asks if there's a relative that may share a similar etheric signature. Luckily, Y'shtola's sister resides in Gridania, so we fetch her and the elementals aid Kane Senna and her 2 Pajali companions in pulling Y'shtola's ether back to her corporeal form. When we go to check on her later, she is well enough to come with us, though her eyes are cloudier than they once were. She states that she feels more aware of the ether around her, like she can almost see it. We ask if she can help us build a ram for Sid's ship, and she says while she isn't capable of it, she very well knows who might be, her former master, Matoya. And that, my dear viewers, is where we are. We're about to journey to meet the one that trained Y'shtola. As always, thank you all so much for watching. See you guys soon.